Wagwan, are you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The number one podcast in America dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and chargies. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the pod. Today we will be discussing what to do if you love your significant other, but your family absolutely hates them. This could be a make or break for a relationship or a slap in the face from an argument later. So pay attention as we try to navigate through this contentious situation. All right. So we're just going to jump right in. We got our boy G Ransom.
What up? What up? What up?
Franchise
What's
in the
goody?
building.
Yes, sir.
And your boy D Black is hosting. Oh my gosh.
Let go.
You came
Let
back with the
go.
PhD words, with
Oh,
contentious and all that.
I know, right?
You're gonna have to put like a footnote with the definition at the
Oh
bottom.
man, I gotta start putting footnotes. Oh, come on, man. My people educated. Come on. Come on.
Contentious.
What does that mean? All
Simple
right.
language, cuz simple language.
All right, I'll try to kind of, pull it back. All right. So first thing we kind of talk about, obviously if your family hates your significant other, right? So let me even just frame the situation, right? Because if you have like someone you're just casually dating, I mean, we had a whole thing like about the right time to introduce them to the family, right? But if it's somebody you casually dating and maybe they just happen to meet your family, you might think about it, a little bit differently versus whether you're married, right? So I'll let you guys choose which way to ultimately address it. But if your family hates your significant other, it can just make, times very difficult for you and add a lot of stress to you and that partner, So how much weight do you put on that? Like how significant is, your family member not liking, who you're dating or who you're potentially marrying, depending on how you want to go.
Yeah, no, I think it's you have to put a weight into it because your parents, they want the best for you, but I think trying to get married and your parents hate it, I think that is you want to like definitely resolve some type of those issues before you even get to the marriage phase.
Mm-hmm.
This should be like resolved in the dating phase, right? So if you are dating a girl or guy, and you realize your family hate that person, and hate is a strong word, like like my
And
question,
they mean it too.
yeah, is like why do they hate her or hate him? This, well, we can kind of get into those detail later, but for me, I'll definitely put stocks into it because I have to really understand where they're coming from because they might, I'm blindsided. There's some interaction that I don't see that they were able to get some they were exposed to and able to relay that to me, right? But ultimately, you have to be able to like move forward without your family, though, at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
especially if depending on why, right? Because why your parents do not like that person or hate that person. So why is important, to ultimately make your decision. But you have to be willing to move forward if your parents do not approve of a relationship, especially someone that you fully see yourself marrying, seeing a future with, and yeah, so I'll kind of leave it at that, and we can kind of get into a little bit deeper.
But what if okay, but before you go,
Yeah.
Salas, what if it's somebody you just trying to like, just a little side piece, you ain't nothing that serious, like, is it worth, like, is it worth still kind of like, having that kind of conversation with your family? Like if your family said like, yo, we hate her because she's not respectful, you know what I mean? But you're not really trying to take her that seriously anyway. So does it does it change your perspective? Like, are you gonna kick them to the side because your family don't like them in that situation?
Oh, I thought, are you asking me or Selassie?
I'm asking you.
Oh, me. I thought you were saying Selassie. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. I mean, if for me to introduce a person to my family, the relationship is actually serious, right? I mean, we kind of talked about this. I
Mm-hmm.
think the first episode 62. Like, if for me to introduce you to my wife, to my family, I already like dated you for a little bit, and I saw potential in you. But if I'm just like trying to get some, some box,
Mm,
Yams.
and some yams. If I
Yash.
if that is my goal, then and my parents saw something in you, then it doesn't even matter because I already know my intent. My intention, my interaction with you was at that level anyway, so it would not proceed more than what it is. So if something, but sometimes you do get in a casual relationship with people, and you catch feelings, and things progresses, and maybe you do want to like, take it to the next level, and your family do not like that person, then you do have to then face the music, right? Then you have to really figure it out. Why do they not like her? Is it is it the disrespectful part? Is it something that you can resolve by having both side of the family, like your family and the girl or the guy, come and sit at the table and you figured it out? But I think it's something that you should be willing to have a conversation with, and you shouldn't be shy away from that topic at all.
Yeah, I feel like if it's casual, I think family could even see that. I know my family; they can definitely see
I'm
that
about
shit.
to say,
They
Slaughter,
be
you
like,
sure?
I know why you love her, that big booty
Is it the
bitch. I know why you
yams?
love her. I know this big ass all over the place is shaking and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know my parents very well, and I can tell by just the engagement, from the interaction, whether or not they like the person. So for me, like personally, like I do put a very substantive amount of like interest in what they think about the person because personally, what I've witnessed whenever the parents do not like the person, and then they end up getting married. In most cases, I realize it never works out. Like this always ends up in divorce or separation, or it's tumultuous, and it's just like a hot mess. And that could sometimes be, the family is probably, adding, complications to the matter, or that person's bearing the weight of knowing that, this relationship may have some repercussions. Some families will even disown the person if they marry someone they don't want them to be with. So I feel like it's a very tricky situation, and especially if this is someone that you're trying to be serious about and get with, then I agree. Yeah, it's definitely something you should try to overcome. But I mean, at the end of the day, parents are people as well, and I think it's all really cultural too. That bears the weight as far as what percentage of stock you put into what they feel. But I do believe, sometimes family and friends can see things that we don't see because we're a little beguiled, right? You got the box booty jiggling right, and your judgment's a
Distracted.
little off. You know what I mean? You're feeling good. You met her for 1 week. Next thing you know, you're talking about you want to marry her and
I
all this other
love
stuff.
you.
You know what I mean?
I
We've
want to
all been there.
marry you.
We all been there. You know what I
Gonna
mean?
have my kids.
Dropped it one
Be my
good
baby
time.
mama.
Like, I see why you love her. I know why. But it would have to be like some straight up, like I could give you a Tales from the Hood type story where I'll tell y'all this story real quick. So one morning, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm woken up. I live in the hood. So I'm woken up by bitch, 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 bitch. Like somebody just screaming bitch nonstop out the window. So I get up. I'm like, oh shit, 2 o'clock in the morning entertainment. Let me go ahead and be my neighborhood watch and find out what's going on.
Oh
Lo
boy.
and behold, I look out my little window in my neighbor's yard, fellow yardie too. He has like 2 or 3 sons. And I look outside the window and I see just like a mass group of young people in front of his yard. And
Hmm.
it's one of his son's girlfriends in front of the house. And apparently this was like Sunday night into Monday morning. Meanwhile, I'm like 2 o'clock in the morning. I got work in like 5 hours. These
Mm-hmm.
kids is up out here apparently went to a party at like 2 o'clock in the morning on a Monday.
Oh boy.
So they got the cars out there. She's out there. She's calling the son a bitch. She's calling his father a bitch, which she called grandpa. Your grandpa's a bitch.
Oh
Your
wow.
mom's a bitch. Your brother's a bitch. Your grandpa's a bitch. Everybody's a bitch in this
Golly.
situation. Yeah, so the son is out there pacing back and forth, and my neighbor, he finally actually comes out and he's like, yo, Awagwan, Awagwan, because he's just like, yo, he's old, you know what I mean? He's just trying to do his thing. So he was like, Grandpa, she's like, Grandpa, you a bitch, Grandpa. The fuck you gonna do, Grandpa? Like, no lie, 2 o'clock in the
Wow.
morning.
Mm.
So meanwhile, son's
Disrespectful.
pacing back and forth. Apparently, that's like they went to a party and I'm not sure if the son dissed her or whatever, but for what I've heard from my neighbor, nobody likes this girl. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But the son still messing with her.
Of
Well, up
course.
until this particular scenario. So she's
Probably
like,
reasons
yo,
why.
you know what I
I know,
mean?
right?
So she's like, I'm gonna get my brother to come and he gonna kill all of y'all. He gonna
Mm.
kill all
Whoa.
of y'all. So he was like, yo, he gonna kill who? He's gonna kill what? Meanwhile, it's like 2:30 now. And I'm like, yo, where the fuck are the cops? That's how you know you live in the hood. Because it's just like, yo, cops are probably waiting for the situation to die down. An
Or
hour
to
later,
escalate.
exactly, until something actually happens. What ended up happening is them kids sped off, and so far they've never come back. But I'm just like, the cops came and they're like, my neighbor's like, yo, where the fuck were y'all? Like, and they gone now. The whole hour, this chick's been calling me a bitch and everybody in my family a bitch and threatening to kill us, and y'all over here doing what? But I'm like, if it's a situation like that, then yeah, it's time to vacate the premises, exit the box. It's not worth it because that's just blatant disrespect right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that, I mean, we kind of talked about like the difference between your intent. I know we've talked about this before, how your intent really kind of shapes the way you kind of approach these different relationships, right? At least I know for men, we tend to approach people differently based on our intent,
Right.
right? But
Yep.
I think unintentionally we kind of talked about the dangers or brought up like basically the danger of casual dating, because you never know who you may actually end up with long term, right? Because
Nah,
you
bro.
I
nah
mean, I
man.
just you
Okay, go
can't.
ahead.
I mean, I mentioned you can't fall in love.
But that's what I'm
Fall in love
saying.
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, and that's
You're
the
like, you know
thing.
what? Screw all of it.
And that's the thing. Sometimes as dudes or sometimes people in general, you may go in with one mindset. And don't act like your mindset won't be changed. Don't act like you may be thinking like, oh, I'm just messing with this person for, they're here for a good time, not a long time. You know what I mean? And then next thing you
Yeah.
know, 10, 20
Again,
years later,
you're
30
getting
years
called a
later.
bitch. Your mom's called a bitch. Everybody's a
No,
bitch.
no. Man. I
So
mean,
it's really
we don't need to. Yeah, keep
go ahead.
going, cuz.
So I think it's important to have certain criteria that you just won't break, regardless of your intent. And I
It's
think that
hard.
that's hard. that joke is hard, but I think that you should have certain like, okay,
I agree. Mm.
yeah, you can't talk to me in a certain kind of way. You can't disrespect my moms. Even if you're not gonna ever be around my moms, you ain't gonna bring somebody who would potentially disrespect your moms.
Yeah.
Like little things like that. And you have to have those kind of rules that you stick with your boo commandments. Episode 63 plug, like your commandments that you wholeheartedly kind of adhere to, But what do you guys think about that?
Oh yeah. I mean, you should. If you're not, I mean, it's not like you're not having a checklist, because I know some people disagree with having a checklist, but you should have like a guiding, you know, I guess, rules or just or parameters around the kind of people you even hang with, Even like you have rules for expectation for your friends. You should
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
definitely have rules and expectation for your partners
Facts.
or the toddy that you hooking up with. It doesn't matter. You should always like have a rule of engagement with the people that you interact with, or even the people you have around yourself. Because at the end of the day, you get caught up in all the mess too, right? And I'll let Glenn answer the question, but I do have a question that I want to come back to.
Yeah. I'm gonna say like I'm gonna be honest. I've been in those situations where, I fell in love with something else other than the person. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So I'm not gonna pretend like it can't happen. Like best case scenario, yes, you definitely want to have some type of like prerequisites or requirements for that individual before you bring them to family. But if you can't avoid it, like for instance, you're an undergrad, whatever, you live at home, you're on break, there's a good chance they're probably going to run into your family. You know what I mean? So it's just like in some situations where it can't be avoided, I would say, definitely don't bring them if you're not serious, or don't even get involved if you're not serious. I mean, you just save yourself all the stress. But I get it. You might want to have your fun, your little experience, whatever. But keep boundaries on that as well, especially if the person you're dealing with doesn't come from a particular background where they respect things like their elders, authority, and like culture and all that. Like, now I will never, ever, ever in all my horrible dating experiences, never have I ever experienced something like that to where it was just like, she's straight calling my whole family bitches, like at 2:00 in the morning, everybody's up, looking, watching, like, oh shit, what's going on? You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, you definitely need to, have some boundaries with it too, have some standards, because that shit ain't cool. Like at the end of the day, it's not.
So one thing I was wondering about is, because we kind of talked about if the rules of our family or the expectation for our family matters, right? And if we're willing to separate our, sometimes when you take the side of your partner, it comes with the consequences of maybe potentially leaving your family behind. Where if you can't resolve the issue, right, where you have to, will you guys ever, like, if we have to be on the other side, will you ever be in a relationship where you are you are being left, like your partner's leaving their family behind because they want to be with you so badly and they can't see eye to eye with their family? Will you ever like put yourself in a place like that for love? Because we talked about it, like if our parents or our people we love, if their input and feedback is so important, right? What about we are on the other side of it? Would you be willing to live with that?
Yeah, for me, I feel like that would be an absolute kind of like extreme scenario, because I put so much emphasis on family, and then, having a good family relationship. You have a good family relationship. I have a good family relationship. Now our families come together and now we have a bigger family. Like, I put so much emphasis on family that feels like that would be such an absolute, like, extreme scenario. Because even if like my wife's family had like an issue with me, I would be the type of person that would try to figure it out and try to address it directly. Like, I'm not even through my wife. Like, I would, if it was her mom or her pops had to, I would try to talk to them directly. Um, because I see them as family now, as my family. But so yeah, so I don't think I don't know. I feel like that'd be a really, really extreme scenario. But this is again, this is a if, this is a really, really big if, but if that ever happened where there was something that we could not get through, like as in me and her family, I would expect her to choose me, because that was the vows that we ultimately took,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Glenn?
I feel like it's a very difficult and unfortunate situation, but if it comes down to that, I mean, my other question would be, is there ever really a full mutual consensus between both families, right? Like, I'm pretty sure the other half is probably just like, I'm not too big fan of her, but you know what, it is what it is. Or I'm not a big fan of him, but you know what, it is what it is. And I think it all really comes down to whether or not there are some legit, like, flagrant fouls committed by either person, to where it's just like deliberate, like, you know what, we're not for it. Because I feel like that support system is more than just the wedding day. It's also when you have kids, other things get involved. It's like you need that family to help out a lot of the times. And it will be good to know whether it's one half or the other or both. I always kind of feel like there's always one family that's usually a little bit more involved than the other, or one family that's usually more in favor of the engagement or the union than the other for some reason. I've never seen like a situation where both families were just like, we're all for it. You know what I mean? But again, that's from what I've seen, which is a very narrow point of view. But at that same time, I feel like it was not ideal to have that separation. But if there's really that much angst against the person or disdain, then there has to be something there, right? That maybe we're not seeing. But at the end of the day, to Dee's point, you make that decision to move forward, then just be ready and prepared for, what may come with it if you don't have the support of your family. And honestly, if you don't have the support of your family, then, it really puts a hinder on things. Anything can happen. You know, you could lose your home, you could lose your job, and you know, a lot of times you end up falling back to family for support. So it's just like it would suck to have to cut family off for that case, but you know, that is the reality, which is the case for some. Really, just having, you know, something to ground you all, or a nice foundation, I think is essential.
Yeah, and the reason why I even asked that is because I am aware of a situation on my side that, there was some disagreement between, you know, a couple, and where the male had to make a decision where he is taking himself uh, and takes some time away from his family,
Mm.
from his siblings and his parents, right? Because of their relationship with his new spouse, right? So that's one of the reason I asked that question, because for me, before I let the person that I'm with to like fully remove himself from their family, because like to your point, family is such a it's so critical to who I am, and to like as to the people around me, where like it would just be tough to kind of see life without them. I would like remove myself where like you can still have your family, because that is your family. I would not be the reason why you don't have your family around, or you're not talking to your family. I would distance myself where, if there's any family gathering or whatnot, I'll remove myself where I'm not part of it. Especially when kids start getting in the picture. To
Mhm.
your point, Glenn, it complicates the whole thing, and you don't want to rub your partner of that just that interaction with their parents and their siblings, their loved ones, because you and the family can't get it to work, can't get it together. Um, I would definitely, yeah, to your point, because I think for me, I would definitely try my best personally to try to work through that issue by myself, and not have to go through my partner to resolve the issue for me. But it is the reality though, because I mean, people, um I've been sometimes I love reading comments on social media, but people like be cutting their family off, man.
Oh
Yeah,
It's
man.
yeah.
crazy how
It
like
just seems like
how
a crazy
prominent
concept, but
it
yeah.
is in our community, in our society today, where people are willing to just walk away from the family because of a disagreement. So yeah, I was just curious what you guys think about that. If how you would feel if you were on the other side of that versus us making that decision. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would definitely suck, but it's if that's the case, it's like, what can you really do? I'm aware of one relationship that I know of where, you know, there is some separation between the person's partner and their family, because of a disagreement, and
Mm.
it got to the point where, you know, that person just does not visit the family anymore. So luckily, there's two families in the equation. There's like, you know, yours and the other person's, but you know, sometimes it's, what can you really do in that
Yeah.
case?
I think those situations are, always going to be very difficult to navigate. But, you know, in what Francis was talking about, I think it's important to dissect the fact that you talked about two types of dissociations from family. You first exemplified one where the guy, he basically dissociated himself from his family, but then you gave another example of being, having an issue with your significant other's family, and how you still are respectful of the significant other's relationship, and not putting pressure on them to dissolve their relationship from their family. But the thing about that though is, and I think this is my opinion, but I think even if you try to be understanding and say, hey, you can still spend time with your family, you could go and do whatever with your family, do trips, whatever, it's still going to be in the back of their mind that you exist.
Yeah.
And therefore, there will still always be that underlying pressure of being associated with you. So yes, in a sense, you may be trying to save face and, saying, hey, you can still continue to interact with your family. I know they don't mess with me, but, they're your family. But there's going to be times where you're going to need to be in their presence.
Mhm.
There's going to be times where maybe you have kids and your kids will need to be in their presence with you, and all of that lack of cohesion and coordination, it's going to be felt. And I feel like the children will ultimately absorb that energy, you know what I mean? So, long way of saying that, having discourse within a family, I think is always going to be difficult to navigate, but I think it's important to always try to find a middle ground, right? In order to try to have like overall family success. One thing that I actually wanted to kind of talk about and go back is that we were talking about, you know, like kind of the rules between casual relationships and, you know, those people that you want to be a little bit more serious with, right? But we also mentioned that ultimately that casual relationship has the potential to become something very serious, right? So why even have rules that are separate depending on on your intent? You should just approach them all the same way, right?
Nah, because some relationships, some people you hook up with ain't about it. You know what I mean? It's just like I know I came into this relationship for this reason. I mean, kudos for even trying to make it a relationship to get what you want at the end of the day, which may not be a person, but something that they do or can provide. Kudos for even taking that step. But I can't think there was a time where people would just be upfront, like they were just afraid to be upfront, like, hey, I just want you because I think you're attractive and I want to have sex. But then they went the long way around and says, you know what, all right, let's be boyfriend and girlfriend just so I can have sex. And then when you stop doing that, then might have to split and make it, and then go from there. And I do believe in those chance encounters, like you mentioned, where it can be okay. It started off as something, maybe not without a commitment, but we decided to feel it through. Like a lot of people tend to feel their relationships through, and but I feel like it just gets muddy. Like if you don't have that intent in mind and you try to pass it off as something else or pretend, or maybe you want your family to think that you're serious about this person, but at the end of the day, you're just trying to smash, you know what I mean? Because you're afraid of what people might think. I think it all comes down to perceptions. And, when you play that game, you always end up getting burned, right? So our thing is like, just be 100. Like, you don't have to fake the funk of being in a relationship. You're just trying to get some box. If that person wants someone to be in a relationship with them for that, you can't knock them for that. But don't force yourself into it thinking that I'm just trying to get my ulterior motive. It just gets messy from there. And I mean, I do believe, people can usually once you get, I do believe in passing of energies when it comes to having sex and stuff like that. I do. Like, there's no way you can do and not feel something for the person. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's just like, don't let your hormones rule over you. You know what I mean? Like, have some control over that to avoid, somebody coming to your front yard at 2:00 in the morning calling your whole family bitches. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like, yeah, I mean, you don't have different rules for them technically, You just the rules that you have is really just based on your intent. So like, because if we're just hooking up, we're just hooking up. And at least from my personal experience, I'm not gonna, bring you to my family, for example. And depending on who you are, I might not even bring you around my friends. So our relationship
Sneaky link.
like,
Yes,
you did, you know her? I know her too.
our relationship might just be very, just be private. It could be a private relationship or interaction, where we don't even need to so our world doesn't even collide to that level where I need to have any rules, because it's just what it is, right? It is what it is. And we don't need to complicate our entire interaction with each other with all those expectation and stuff like that. But when the relationship then proceeds to whatever is progressing to be, then that's when the rules that you do have, which is the same rule, and that's when that rule comes into play. So for me, I don't think you have two different rules. Your expectation is really what drives when that rule comes into play, if that makes sense.
But in a way you do, because you just kind of mentioned it, like you're not going to bring them around friends. You're not going to, so those are rules.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, but sometimes you just
only
like,
come through
you
the back
might,
door.
I mean, sometimes, and sometimes even the girls that do graduate to the level where you do bring them around
Oh God,
friends.
graduate.
Graduation.
Yeah, you do like move to the next phase. I mean, every interaction starts. I think every interaction starts at a private level, then it proceeds to where meet your friends, unless if you meet them with those people, right? If you met online, go on a date with that person, is a one-on-one interaction. You get to know them one-on-one, then eventually it progresses where you invite them to a group gathering, right? Then if it proceeds to the next level, then they meet your family. So
I
for me, yeah, so I don't know. I feel like everything starts at that
Mm.
basic level.
Yeah, but so okay, so everything may start at that basic level, but okay, here's my thing. I think that having that level of like this, like having rules based on your intent can still, I feel like it doesn't work. And the reason why is because even though you intend to be casual, life can make it serious.
Right. Then the rule
Thing-
comes into play when it gets serious.
but then you get what I'm saying? Like, God forbid there's a baby involved or something like that. The circumstances change.
Or then
You
it
not,
is
Gets
what
even
it is what
worse.
it is at that point. You
you
just
know what I'm saying?
But you know the
So,
funny thing about rules though, they only apply if both people play by them, right? Because it's
Mhm.
like at the end of the day, like I used to have a rule, and it was real quick. If I was interested in, doing the do, I will let them know up front. That was my rule. I'd be like, hey, I'm not looking for a relationship, but if you want to do the do, I'm all down for it. What would happen? What would realize is I would call myself, I was a serial dater,
Mhm.
because I would not see anyone else while I was with the person, even though I had no interest in being in a
Oh
relationship.
wow.
Well, not a committed long-term relationship, a physical one, but I would not see anyone else because I wasn't beat for passing anything around. So I would
Mhm.
play it safe, knowing that I was active with this person. But what I realized is, and you called me out on this too, D, at one point, because I realized it would always happen. Like I would tell the person that I was not interested, but then somehow it would always escalate into a situation where they wanted the relationship to be more, and I tell them no, and now I'm the bad guy. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Because you're doing boo you're doing boo things with someone you only have you want to have just a box bin thing relationship with.
Exactly. So
You
I'm like,
know,
when it comes to rules, both people have to play by them. And I realize is that a lot of people, I'm not going to generalize the women, but they will feel like, you know, like, okay, he may not want to be in a relationship right now, but after he
Mhm.
get this, he gonna want to be in a relationship.
You
Or,
may sway. You may be able to sway
I
them.
mean, don't
you
we
know what
all
I mean?
do it though? Like, don't we all sometimes have that? Like, if you have a crush on someone, you always have that back in your mind, like, okay, I'm gonna ride with this for now, and I'm open. They change their mind and they like want more because you
Mhm.
want more. You selfish in that way. You're like, you know what? I'm about to show them all the good of who I am, all the good in me, right? And I would let her want me to like she wanted to like date me, right? Because you and that's what what happens in your situation. And I mean I
Mm,
see it all the time with guys and guys who actually tell girls up front like this is just very casual. I'm not looking for anything, but it always happens because you start like going on movie dates, going on dinner, spending a lot of time together. You can't spend time with people all the time, especially for you. Just say you don't hang out with anybody else. You hanging out with this person every single day. Obviously, you grew some feelings. You want more. Who
Mhm.
doesn't?
but you tell them, yo, I don't want nothing more. You know what
Yeah,
I
but we
mean?
are humans with feelings, bro. What you
But it
mean?
does give. I understand that it
Give the
gives. So,
wrong messages, bro.
so it's kind of it's interesting, right? Because we talked about another episode. We talked about gift giving, right? So if which I'm basically trying to drag to basically showing appreciation for a person. So basically, if they're your sneaky link and you enjoy your sneaky link, you know what? Let me gift you with a movie trip or take you out to dinner or something. You can't do that because now you're doing boo things, right? You're doing relationship things. So basically, the relationship needs to be strictly you come to the house, we do whatever, go home.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's corny to me, man.
That's kind of
I'm a
Okay, well then
crazy.
you
romantic.
shouldn't
That's
complain when they
crazy.
catch feelings. Then
But
All
I
right,
told them.
that's
you know what I'm
crazy.
saying?
But I
Yeah.
learned my lesson now. But I got this a little corny. Like I'm just gonna come in, stick in, and then just dip. Like,
I mean, some girls, hey, some ladies want it like that too because they want
that's
their
true.
independence, right? They don't want to be tied down to nobody, you know. So, I mean, like you said, I think there has to be a, like an agreement between the two parties, right? You have to be very honest up front with your intent, because like you said, you have to let them know my intention with this relationship is just very casual. I'm not looking for anything. One thing that, one of the reason why they always thought, oh, maybe with time come change, because one thing that we always say is I'm not ready for a relationship. We always use that's a key
Ready.
word that we
So you
always
may be
use.
ready at
So you
some
may be
point.
You're gonna be
ready
ready after you get
like
this.
3 months or 6 months later, if I'm still around and we still
Yeah.
going, you might be ready. So back of our mind, when we keep that interaction going, we think, okay, this might progress to something else. So you can't. That's why I don't blame anybody that catch those feelings or wish for the relationship to be more than what it is, because like we all human, we catch feelings. So
That
I-
Guac
I-
2000 gonna make you ready.
That guac, oh my god.
or just don't give him. Or who said that? Give him that weak D, right? So the D,
That mediocre D, that
gotta give him
D3D,
mediocre D.
that D3.
You
penis.
can't give them that 10 out of 10 every time. Think they don't want to stick around, bro. Like it's
So wrong with y'all. He said, "I'm not gonna put as much effort into this as possible.
Like, I ain't gonna
I'm
shower.
you
I
gotta
ain't
do
nothing.
like 10 out
Make
of
sure
10,
I'm not
like
fully
occasionally.
rested.
You gotta like maybe
What
once
is
or
this?
twice out of the week, bro. You gotta like make sure it's not consistent. I'm just
I don't want you to
Oh,
fall in
God.
love." Like, what?
Bro, I'm not even gonna look at you when I do it this time.
Oh my god. Well, I will say so. So whoever's listening, take this as a point of warning that if someone tells you that they're not that serious, that you should probably not invest your emotions into them, because at the end of the day, you don't want to fall with egg on your face because you didn't really listen to the words that they were saying, right?
That part.
One thing that I actually wanted to ask about is that as we were kind of talking about family right now, and being, and being in relationships and having families kind of come together, and having the approval of your family for your significant other, sneaky link, etc., all the other, starting five, all the other things that's on the list. Does it matter who is ultimately, giving that hate? So, like for me, right? If it's coming from my mom, that changes everything, right? If it comes from my mom, that changes completely everything, like the way that I'm going to receive that information, the way I'm going to react to it, the way that I'm going to address it, right? Now, if it's like one of my sisters, you know what I mean? I'm still going to take it seriously, but it may just be something because of their age,
Like you
like
just hate because she got a fat ass. That's why you hate.
Oh wow.
or maybe it's like a cousin or something, I mean, but you get what I'm saying. Like sometimes I feel like the
Yeah.
age and then the person, like if it was my dad, like I would take it a little bit more seriously because my dad doesn't really hate
Say
people.
anything, right?
Yeah, he's not one to really
yeah.
say much about nothing or
Like,
hate
oh
nobody
shit,
like
if
that.
dad is saying something,
You know what I'm
must be
saying?
up.
So you really perk
Right.
up. You know what I mean? You really perk up. So for you guys, does it matter who it comes from? And then, if you give me some examples of like, okay, here's somebody that maybe really matters and somebody that you wouldn't take it as seriously.
I would say, yeah, it does matter. Like to chime in on the dad one, like from experience, like with my own pops, yeah, for sure. I know if he's saying something, then something is really bad. Like I really gotta look at this because it's just like usually it's just like, all right, she's pretty, like what else? You know what I mean? Like, what else is going on? But with moms, I feel like they could always tend to have these, it's always like a little bias with moms because or double standards because they tend to have these high expectations for their
Yeah,
kids.
that's true.
You know what I mean? And I think some moms ultimately look at who you bring home as a reflection of them. So it's kind of like, this is what you comparing me to? Like this thing, you know what I mean? I think so moms, you always got to take it with a grain of salt. Not that it's less valid, but I feel like they're always going to be a lot more harsher critics. But it's what's funny though, because they always play nice. Like they always are like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you, and blah, 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 blah.
But after they leave,
After they leave,
This
oh my
hoe.
God.
There's hell in this house.
yo, I swear to God,
Y'all shaking everywhere. Like, what the
that is so funny.
it's just like, yo, it's so weird. Like women, man, I swear, but moms, man, like, yeah. So for me, if dad says something, that's the top. That's like, I gotta pay attention.
Mhm.
My sister, right up there with my dad too, because she'll just keep it 100 with me. My mom is because it's kind of like, not that it's there, but it's also like I got to put a little bias on it, a little double standards because that's
Mhm.
mom. Like
You gotta really
just,
think about it. Like, why she
yeah.
hating? Why you hating, mom?
Yeah.
What about you,
Yeah,
friend?
that's no, like actually my family dynamics is so different. Like I will intake any of the feedback from any of my immediate family members. Like
They all weigh
that,
the same.
they all weigh the same because they all come with their own different perspective. And I respect and I need to fully listen to whatever they have to say because they have their own interaction because their interaction with that person is just as important to me as my parents' interaction with that person. So for me, I need to really intake all of those feedback and really evaluate where is this coming from? What did I miss? And ultimately, one thing I'm also gonna do, especially people who've seen that person who's getting the negative feedback, I'm gonna ask like a close friend that's also like one of my best friend, right? I'm like, yo, or like, cuz, what do you think of this person? And I'm gonna really kind of weigh the feedback that I'm getting from like my family and see if it's consistent across the board because that's how you evaluate the biases that comes with your family, right? Because there's a cultural aspect of it as well, right? Or this person can't cook, this person can't make this food, or this person doesn't dress like this person didn't greet us the proper way, or didn't respect us, or the person said my first name, called me by my first name, and then use Mrs. or Mr. or whatever. Like different, there could be different factors, right? Ultimately, but for me though, I'm gonna intake it all equally for sure.
That is really, really interesting. And you indirectly kind of talked about what, like, kind of touched upon my next question because how far does this circle actually go? You know what I mean? Like you have your immediate family, that their opinion matters. Um and any kind of discourse that they have on the significant or the candidate, the
Yeah.
potential person, how much stake you put into your family's thoughts. But then what about like your cousins, your aunts, mama so and so from so and so, you
Right.
know? Like, are we asking her, like, oh, do you like this person? Like, if she don't like the person, are you dropping them? Your
Yeah.
third grade best friends? Like, how far out is
Yeah.
appropriate? You know what I mean?
At least for me, it's like it's the people that I value that their feedback are important. So, it's whoever's in my immediate life at that moment and that spend time that I know is gonna spend as much time with me and with her. So obviously whoever's my best friend at the moment, is feedback is important. However, his feedback is not doesn't is I want to put it at the same scale as my family because I think that is the ultimate goal. But my best friend who also is in my life is feedback or her feedback, right? Because I have both. I agree. I do believe men and women can be friends. That's a different
That's
topic.
another topic.
uh, but yes, so like their feedback definitely is, you have to intake that as well because they actually they have a different perspective as well because your family see things from a family member perspective and your friends see it from a social gathering standpoint, right? Like, oh, she's always talking shit about people that's walking by. Your family don't see that, right? They may not be privy to that. But your friends who actually go out, maybe you go out a bar, they spend a lot of time with you guys, they see her in a different state as well. Or like she's always want to fight people, she's so argumentative, she's so combative, she's like always want to flirt with guys or giving guys the high. Those are the subtle really things that you don't see, right? But the people around you, your closest friends who spend a lot of time with you, can't see that. So you do have to. That's why, like, I feel like anybody feedback, in life, it doesn't matter who they are, should have some kind of weight. It doesn't mean that you fully take it, but you should respect all feedback because there's some truth in anything, right? There could be some truth that may save your life from that may come from anyone. So for me, I would say just always intake everything, but obviously your closest people who you keep around you are hold the greatest, influence.
Yeah, I definitely vet mine because I know I got the type of family that will not know shit about the person, but will quickly say, "Oh, she's so nice. She's so nice. Oh, I can't wait for you guys to get married." And it's just like, you don't even know her. You know what I mean? Like, I know I have those people that I have hype men in my family. I'm gonna put it plain and simple. They will hype this person up to, oh my God, and they'd be like, "Oh, you broke up? Oh, I didn't know. Oh, fuck her." You know what I mean? It's just like, it's kind of like,
So no matter what direction you go, they with it.
They with it, exactly. And that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, I agree with Francis's point. And like definitely, like, I feel like it helps. Definitely my core family, mom, dad, sister, like right away, D, you, like core people right away for sure off the bat.
Oh,
I'm gonna
snap! I
listen
made
to
the
that.
list.
Yeah, man, you're in there. So you gonna have to deal with her too.
Oh, God.
So it's like, we're definitely those people. I think it does help to have, like, little splinter cell family planted here and there, not intentionally, but people that they will probably let their guard down around. Because if I'm around your parents, I'm gonna be on my best behavior all the time for the
Yeah,
most
that's
part.
true.
You
That's
know what I
true.
mean? But if I'm around people that I don't know our family, or maybe like a cousin or whatever, maybe we're the same age too. So then you try to like let your guard down a little bit and start to show who you really are. You take away that kind of pretense and pretend. Something sometimes you just let those inhibitions go. And that's when you kind of realize who that person is. And people may pick up certain things, but yet again, I also look at who are the people giving me the feedback also. Are they in healthy relationships? Have they ever been? I'm not gonna pretend like I ain't got no thoughts in my family. You know what I mean? Are they in healthy relationships? Have they ever been divorced? Have they ever done this and that? So it's just like, to me, all that matters as well. And until they've actually spent some time with the person, I think you can have an opinion. Oh, she looks like a nice person. You know what I mean? And hopefully all goes well, but just don't hype me up. Don't gas me up. And then you're like, oh, what happened at the end? You know what I mean? Like, I just hate that. I don't like that.
That's a really good point too, because you have those people that, again, in your family that may just ride. They're just so want to be so. They want you to be so winning.
Yeah.
So winning.
They want you to win so bad.
Like, finally.
Yeah.
All we do is win, no matter what.
Oh my God. So
Let's get some pussy.
Oh my God.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yo.
Hey, yo, that is a real thing,
Yeah.
though. You get excited for your family when they do something like, yes.
Yeah,
See you,
like,
baby.
finally you got a girlfriend. Oh my God. About time. Jeez Louise.
I was worried about that one.
I was worried about you.
Took some time, but we here.
So yes, that's actually a really good point. But all right, so we kind of talked about it from the dynamic of, our immediate families, right? And our perception of kind of like and I guess and how we interpret, our relationship with maybe our significant others' families. But what about their relationship with their family? How important is that to you? And if they, and I guess how much does that impact your decision to want to be with that person?
Man, I think that's for me, it's a big part because, I'm very family oriented. So I do want to see that you also have that same regard for your family. Like, if I see your parents are elderly, you're not taking care of them, or you're not looking after them, checking in on them, that's a little bit worrisome to me, because it's just like, what's going to happen when we get older? You know what I mean? If something happens to me, like, are you going to be there? If something happens to our family, are you going to be there? And I feel like your existing family, your nuclear setting, kind of sets that foundation for you to kind of reveal who you are when it comes to your own. I don't think it starts when you have your own. It starts at home first. You know what I mean? So I feel like it is important. but also understanding that some families may be different from mine at the same time. Because I know some people that have standards where they're like, they don't want people that come from single family homes because they're afraid that there may be some dysfunction there. But to me, it's like there could be dysfunction in a dual parent home as well. But it's just like there are so many layers to a single parent home. Then it comes to, especially when you think about young men that come from single parent homes, there's always a concern that they're highly emotional, they tend to be more aggressive, violent, and things like that. And it's just like, I think it plays a part, and whatever your standard is, your standard. Don't look down on any other situation just because. I think as individuals, we come from unique settings. You know what I mean? You have some people that come from dual parent homes. They're coddled. They're entitled. They don't work for anything. It's just so many different dynamics, but it definitely helps. I think, in my opinion, I want a family dynamic that best resembles mine. You know what I mean? Where we have family that look out for each other. You know what I mean? There's like cohesiveness there. You have a relationship with your parents. You have people that you can talk to. You're not cursing your parents out and things like that. All those things I think play a significant part in my partner selection.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, as a family oriented person, my partner has to reflect that as well. You know, I mean, what was the theme of episode 63? Don't let anyone force you into a
It's a relationship.
relationship.
Facts.
Don't let anyone force you into a relationship. Know what you want. Don't force yourself. Don't feel pressured. At the end of the day, like, well, the theme of our conversation so far is really like, we have some of those rules that we have to follow, and don't like make excuses for it. If you see it, people tell you they are, if you want to like know how they're gonna deal with your family and the kind of how they are gonna be within your new family, if you plan to like be with that person, like get married or whatnot, the interaction that they had with their family growing up is what kind of show that's what set the foundation for that person, right? Ultimately, they have to unlearn a lot of that if they want to get into more like to this picture of whatever your standard or ideal family looks like. And that's a lot of work trying to like unlearn, trying to teach people like this is how my family is, this is what I want. Even though yes, there are things that we learn in relationships, but if that's not one thing you want to like have to deal with in a relationship, when you see it, know what it is. Don't try to make excuses for it, right? So yeah, definitely it's important. If you don't want somebody who talks back to their family, if you see your partner is talking back and snapping on their mom or talking back to their dad, that tells you a lot right there. Like, oh, that's a red flag. To me, it's a red flag of like, I don't want somebody who's disrespectful to their family. Respect is a huge part of the way I live my life. I respect everyone's viewpoints, and that shows in a lot of the things a lot of things I stand for on the show, for a lot of the topic we talk about. You guys can see that, like, I value people's for who they are. But yeah, so just don't you try and justify it. You go by what you see and just make it what it is, and that usually will save your headache later on in the relationship.
Yeah, I think that's all really powerful, and it actually perfectly brings us into our last question. As we're talking about, the pressure that we're applying on people or applying on ourselves, based on the relationships and the family dynamics, and we do have this mantra that we, so eloquently revisited. Don't let anyone pressure you into a
Force you
relationship.
into a relationship.
Oh, I'm sorry. Force you
in a relationship.
into a relationship.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate, or is there ever a moment where it is appropriate to give someone an ultimatum because of their relationship with their family or your relationship with your family?
Yeah, I can go in. He can close us up, Glenn. No, man, if my safety is in question, bro, that is the only way. If the safety of my spouse or my partner is in question, my safety is in question, the safety of the of our kids or my loved ones is in question, then that's where the ultimatum will come into play. To go
Mm,
back to my statement earlier that I would volunteer to take myself out of the picture so my spouse can still have the relationship with her family, or like, or he or she family, right? So that's how I view it from a healthy standpoint. If the disagreement is just due to, more like, oh, she doesn't like the way I talk, she doesn't like my job, she doesn't like where I'm,
mm-hmm.
whatever, like you'll be where I'm from,
Something
because she doesn't
petty.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, some petty, like, oh, he's black. I don't know. It could be anything like that, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
people have those, like, they don't want their partner to be with a black person or vice
Yeah.
versa, right?
Mm,
So if it's because of those reasons, I would then volunteer myself to stay out of the picture so she can maintain a relationship. If she decides to remove herself, no, that would be her decision. I would not give the ultimatum. But when it comes to the safety of the people of my family, including herself, then that's where the ultimatum comes into play. Where yes, I'm not going to let you see your family. Especially, I'm not going to allow you to take our kids to see your family because I don't trust your family.
mm,
I don't know the safety of of my kids, and I don't know what they're going to be teaching my kids. I don't know what they're going to be telling my kids, the lessons, because a lot of those stuff now comes back as a reflection of me.
mm-hmm.
So there's a lot at stake, right, at that moment. So for me, that is my only cutoff.
Yeah. I would say from my part, anything that impedes on creating a healthy family dynamic to me is an ultimatum. Like, and I get it, like, especially when you talk about interracial, intercultural relationships as well. Sometimes it's not even a matter, it's a matter of, I don't want you marrying a Jamaican person. I want you marrying an African person. And it's just like,
Mm.
all those things come into play as well. And to me, if it's going to impede on our ability to allow this family to thrive, I feel like that is an ultimatum, because I feel like, and also like now too, I feel like we low key throw a lot of ultimatums into relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about it. When you propose, that's an ultimatum. It's like, yo, either you marry me, or what if she says no? What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Are you gonna be like, you go back to being boyfriend and girlfriend? No, it's kind of like,
That.
where do we go
She
from
wasn't
here?
ready.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like,
That's true.
ultimatums exist in so many ways. I think they get a bad rep, but particularly when it's just like obviously things that we can't control. But I feel like those are all things to take into consideration as far as like, the family dynamics, who you're bringing into your family, and more importantly, who you're looking to expand your family with. Because when you're with this person, you're now expanding who you are and going further. It's not so much, okay, I'm expanding my parents and my grandparents or whatever. No, it's about what roots you're going to set. You're going to be those new grandparents. You're going to be those new aunties and uncles. You know what I mean? So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, understanding that and having someone with you that is for the family dynamic. Because it's like, there are going to be some situations where the family may not support it. And you see it a lot in intercultural, interracial relationships where one half of the family does not support it. And that does not mean that it cannot work. It's just going to probably take a little bit more effort on your part to really, help keep a healthy family dynamic. And if that is the case, if me and my partner have that faith in each other and trust to be like, hey, you know what, regardless, we're going to ride this through and make it work, then that it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. I think just to kind of wrap up these points that you guys made, I just think that if an ultimatum is ever made, you should take it seriously.
Mm.
Um, Regardless of where it came from, who it came from, for someone to make an ultimatum, it is kind of a mechanism for expressing the seriousness of that specific topic. So, then you should kind of ask yourself, how much you value that person and how much you're willing to kind of, accommodate or not accommodate, if you're willing to accommodate that request. But I think you should always still dissect, the reasoning behind the ultimatum,
Mm.
because maybe you may think that it is frivolous, but there may be some, some seriousness to that ultimatum or something you just didn't consider, But with that said, for more content, or to learn more about the podcast, feel free to check us out at Jerk
Jollof Collard Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, and TikTok.
Oh, you see that rescue that came in from G Ransom, bro? Oh man, see that's why it's important to always have your family, and I got my family here.
Hey.
On that note, we thank you all for listening. Have a great week.
Peace.
Peace.
Wagwan, are you there? What's good? It's your homie G with the Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast, extending a major thank you on behalf of the team for checking out this episode. Love what you heard? Leave us a review on your podcast streaming platform. And don't forget, don't be selfish, share this with your friends. Looking to get more podcast-related info, major announcements, discussion questions, follow us at Jerk Jollof Collard Pod on Instagram and Facebook. Questions for the channel or any member of the team can be directed to jjcpod@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for getting your weekly dose of culture here with us. And on behalf of the team, thank you. Stay healthy, wealthy, blessed, and safe out there, y'all. Until next time, peace.